Welcome everyone to the Trust the Plan podcast. I'm Nick Hopwood, and today I'll be joined by my dear friends, Frank and Hillary Sanchez. Frank, also known as Pizza Frank, and Hillary, also known as the Apple Princess of Washtenaw County. And you'll have to listen in to the rest of the show to understand the nicknames. So the reason why we wanted to document their journey, so to speak, is because they have gone from corporate life to small business life through the franchise opportunity. And a lot of people ask me about franchising and if it makes sense. Well, I've seen some failures and I've seen some successes, and this is definitely one of the success cases. So let's learn about the story of Frank and Hillary. Frank no longer delivering chewing tobacco to gas stations. Goes from chewing tobacco job to Little Caesars corporate to being an owner of several Little Caesars franchises, as well as the underlying real estate. So without further ado, I welcome in Frank and Hillary. Well, I'd like to welcome in Frank and Hillary Sanchez. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Well, thanks for having us.
So I think a better introduction would be Hillary, the Apple Princess of Washtenaw County. Did I say that right?
Yes, you said that right. Yes.
Frank, is that how you address her, or?
On occasion.
Excellent. And I like to refer to Frank as Pizza Frank. You don't mind if I call you the Pizza King, do you?
No, Pizza Frank is good, or Pizza King, I guess. We're not quite there yet, but maybe one day.
We're on our way. So I'm glad that you guys agreed to join the podcast because I think that you have a great story. And it's a story of entrepreneurial spirit, a story of entrepreneurial success, as well as, right, an interesting way of getting there. Okay. So I'd love if you wouldn't mind sharing your story and maybe some tips for people that are thinking about going into business for themselves, or maybe some horror stories about what to watch out for if you were going to go into business for yourselves, particularly through a franchise, right?
Yeah. No, I guess we can start. Yeah, back in, I guess, 2008, I started working at the corporate office and was fortunate enough to learn quite a few things about the business and the company, the franchise department.
Well, we got to back up. We got to go back up. Okay. So like Frank, you went to Michigan.
I was playing basketball in Indiana, in the parking lot, the driveway in the barn.
Right. So from Indiana to the University of Michigan, and I believe we were on campus for a little bit of time at the same time, right?
Yeah, probably. I think I was there 2000 to 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were, I think, there till what, 01?
I graduated in 01, yeah. And Hillary, you didn't go to Michigan, right? But you grew up in Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County, right?
On campus, and I actually met Frank at U of M.
Okay.
At a function. I just wasn't a student, but
a function. Was it a function?
It was a function. It was a house party function.
Excellent. I'd love to hear more about that offline.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So out of school, right? Did you guys, I know that you had corporate jobs, but Frank, I got to hear about the story. I got to hear about your first job out of college really quick.
Yeah, so my first job was I was the chewing tobacco vendor for all of Wayne County for White Owl cigars and Red Man Chew, Timberwolf Chew as well. So I'd, kind of go to the cash and carries and all the gas stations in Wayne County and trade out their old tobacco, give them some new ones, sell them in some new SKUs.
And how did you score that job?
I honestly don't remember. I think I applied on monster.com and back when that was a big thing, and they called and I interviewed and they gave me a job and they gave me a car with unlimited gas and
it gave you a taste for working for yourself.
Yeah.
Because his next job was a 9 to 5 where he had to clock his hours, and he really always fondly remembered when he could it was project based, so he could get done as quick as he wanted as long as he was efficient. And he missed that job and talked about it often. I think that kind of led him to wanting to be his own boss.
Ah, yes, I totally understand that. Hillary, what about you coming out of school? What was your path?
Sure. So I got my actual degree in creative writing, which I did not use. But that's a whole other topic for another podcast. But I went to work in corporate sales, Thomson Reuters. It was a great job. I loved it. But then I had my first child. When he turned 1, I was ready to be home more. And I went to work at the apple orchard that you referenced earlier with my nickname, which was a family business. And that kind of led to talks with Frank. He'd always wanted to do his own thing. And I'd grown up in a house where nobody had a standard schedule or standard. Both my parents worked for themselves. So that was all I knew. And yeah, that's kind of how we got started. But so I quit Thompson when my son was 1, went to work for my dad part-time. And then Frank grew so fast that I quit on my dad and went to work for Frank full-time.
You just skipped like 10 years in 10 seconds. We can't.
Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry.
Our fans, they require all the details. Okay. So we have to go one step at a time. Okay. So Frank, you decided to quit the tobacco job. Okay. Yeah. Which was questionable. I mean, I think you could imagine where you could be now if you stayed there.
Yeah. No, great gig. It's time to move on. And
yeah. So you decided to move on. Were you, how did you land at Little Caesars corporate? Was this, another monster.com posting or someone that you knew? What happened?
Yeah. So then, I went to work at Thomson Reuters as well did the sales for about 2 years after the tobacco job. And just didn't fit well with the 9 to 5. So kind of went to back to school at Eastern to get an MBA part-time. And they had the career center. So I just went to the career center and spoke to those guys, see what they had available, what different options were. And they basically said, Little Caesars was hiring for corporate reps. They kind of go through a training process. And I remember when I did the tobacco job, I went to a conference and I sat next to a guy who worked in steel manufacturing, and he was turning around steel companies they were losing hundreds of thousands a month to making millions of dollars a month. And I just thought that was really fascinating. And so then I figured, hey, if I ever wanted to get to something more or do something, I'd have to learn the basics. And I thought, well, if I can't work in a Little Caesars and fix it up and turn it around with the team and the customers, I was like, I'd never be able to do anything bigger than that. So basically they kind of hired us in to learn the business. We go 6 months work in a store to run it, and then we kind of go around opening new stores, and then we kind of got our own territory for a while. And then you got to help people with their businesses and kind of all aspects of what they were doing with their growth or in-store problems or issues. And basically it's a great time to learn and really was a good experience there. So I figured, hey, I'm going to work in one Little Caesars, see if I can make it better, and then go from there.
So I kind of think about in my head your experience at Little Caesars corporate, and correct me if I'm wrong. You travel around the country, kind of coaching up these franchisees who are struggling or not. They're not optimizing whatever. You just show them, hey, you guys, you got to get back to basics. You got to follow the formula, and we're going to turn around your shop, right? So you kind of became a turnaround specialist or something like this, where you were an expert with every step of the franchise process and kind of helping these guys along the way. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, that was a great description, and it's really kind of what you grew into with this program that I applied for. And by the end, the last couple of years, it was really fun to see people. You got to kind of you worked with people that were struggling, worked with people that were super successful. Got to work with hundreds of people and see what they did right, what they did wrong. So basically, gave you an education on Little Caesars and also paid you to help other people. And it was really good to see. Good to see when you could connect with people and work with them and just say, hey, here's the system and here's some of the maybe the limiting beliefs that are put in your way. Let's try to work around those and get back to the basics, like you said, and just follow the system. And
now I remember golfing with you. This is probably like 2008 or something. And I haven't golfed since, I don't think, because, I probably scored an 80, and that's not for 18 holes, if you know what I mean. If you know. Okay. But Hillary, Frank was telling me what we've been talking about here.
Mhm.
And I thought, man, you would be the perfect guy to purchase an underperforming store and then, run it and manage it, turn it around and have it as a success. And so I kind of feel like it wasn't long after that when you purchased your first one and you quit corporate. Is that
Yeah.
timeline similar?
Yeah, I think we were golfing, and yeah, I'm not sure, maybe it's 2013 or 2014 or something. But yeah, I was getting kind of antsy and didn't know what to do next. And yeah, and two stores came up for sale there in 2015, and we ended up picking them up. But yeah, I think it's yeah, I think the more we were talking about it, it's for me personally, it was more of a mindset of how do I get away from the comfort of corporate America and then the 9 to 5 schedule, and can I actually do this? Will this actually work for me? And how do you actually, all I've known for my whole life was you go to work and then you get a paycheck and then you log your hours. And growing up in Indiana, working at Bob Evans, working at all these places, and that's what that's kind of was ingrained in me. So
And budgeting off a set schedule was what we had been doing prior. Well, prior to that, I had a finite amount of money for our income, and then we budgeted around that. So that was a big leap to know it was going to fluctuate.
yeah, we didn't know what our income would be, and took a big pay cut to get started. But
Okay. So let's talk about that for a second. So for those of you who don't know Hillary, she is I don't know how to say it, just very in touch with the budget. Is that a fair way to describe it?
Yes, I'm very particular with our budget. Yeah,
So that obviously that means that you're on point with your guys' finances, but you've helped a lot of other people as well. You could have gone into business as a financial coach with helping people with budgeting and maybe paying off credit cards like Dave Ramsey style.
I probably would have had fun with that. Yes. If I had started that path early on, that probably would have been something I would have enjoyed. It's mostly to what you referenced. It's been like family and friends. It's not been an actual income driver for me, but I do enjoy kind of giving them my Excel sheet and then customizing it to them and then checking in with them monthly and asking, well, kind of what you do, basically learning from you and your, and your wife, Jenny, used to do it. The idea of what their goals are versus what my goal would be, because everybody has something different, whether it's travel or debt or, buying their first house or whatever. But no, I do enjoy it. So
Hillary, you were in tune with the finances. And if we're going to take this leap of faith, right? Go from corporate paycheck to, a Schedule C, profit and loss statement, self-employed, et cetera. You better be sure that you have a long runway where if it doesn't work out, or if it takes longer than you expect to have success, that you're still going to be okay. And let's draw a parallel to retirement, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to leave your daily grind paycheck and now we have no paycheck coming in, we better be sure what our cost of living is going to be, and will our savings, Social Security, pension, what will our existing resources be enough to cover it? Right. Mm-hmm. So sadly, a lot of people don't do that homework, which is really frustrating. So anyway, there's a big parallel there as I see it. But Hillary, can I interpret this to mean that you were not worried because you knew what the expenses were looking like? You didn't have a lot of anxiety about Frank making the change?
No, I was very scared. I mean, to be honest, well, I'm very conservative with money. And as we make more money, I allow more money to different topics, but I'm still very controlling of whatever that lump sum is that I have allocated. And part of me being conservative is I had Frank show me the P&Ls. I looked at them with him. He explained certain things to me where he thought there was upside. And then I told him, I have faith in you. And anyone who was going into franchising, this is what I would recommend. But I said, I have faith in you, but I don't have faith in what outside factors could contribute to this not going well. So I took the perceived profit from the profit and loss, and I cut it by 20%. And then I took our monthly expenses and I increased them by, I think, 10%, because I said, things are going to go up. And who knows if that's going to increase like the cost of things for us will go up, but the cost of things for the store also could. And when I changed those two numbers, then the business income didn't look like it was going to be so great. It would, depending on how you looked at it, maybe not be that great at all. But I at least was going in not with blinders on. And then there was a lot more upside. So no, I was very nervous. He had a lot of things, like he had medical. We didn't have that through my job because I was part-time. So we had to factor that in. Some of our colleagues who have gone into franchising had medical through their spouse or through some other form. I think at the time we reached out to you to ask you how you did your medical, but, with different options that there are. But no, I was very nervous. I'm not going to lie. And then every new store I won't skip to the end of the story, but every store we've gotten since then, there's always a little bit of nerves. And I do the same thing with each new store. I take what they think the profits will be based on the numbers Frank gets, and then I massage them down and see if it still makes sense to do. And some have been riskier than others, and some have paid off better than others. But yeah,
And
but I
so,
also have a lot of faith in Frank.
so you've been acquiring more locations over the years. Okay. Would you mind sharing, what do you think the end goal looks like? Do you have idea of just the idea of staying on the same path, maybe acquiring more into the future, or are you feeling like that you want to maintain? Like, what's your mindset today as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think it's, as we progress, we're kind of slowly diversifying into real estate a little bit. But as from a Little Caesar standpoint, we're still super bullish about it, excited. It's a great brand. Things have been going really well for us. So we're excited about that, but we're kind of taking it. Before, early on, we were just kind of hungry to grow and advance. And now we're kind of very particular about our growth. We're more calculated with it. It has to kind of fit in with our team, make sure we have the people that are wanting to and willing to help us out to do it. Where before we were kind of jumping in, and just we'll
You
make
just
it
need a
work.
chance. You just have to plant your flag somewhere. But now you can be more particular. I like that a lot. Now let's go back a couple of years to the March 2020 experience. So when I think of Little Caesars, I think of $5 hot and ready's, right? Maybe it's $6 now. But that's probably, if I had to guess, where a lot of your volume is. And that seems to me like it's recession proof. Like everyone, even if you're struggling, can afford a $5 pizza, right? And actually it's pretty good quality for $5, So is Little Caesars like recession proof? And what about in good times? Do people trade up, to another brand in good times? Or, and then let's also talk about the pandemic. And, were you literally physically shut down for a period of time? If you wouldn't mind sharing thoughts about that.
Yeah. So the pandemic was very tough, trying time for everybody. The rules changing constantly, multiple times a day in 3 different states. We had to follow, like Hillary followed the news like religiously. It was just, what's the governor going to say here? What's the governor going to say there? How do we adapt? How do we stay ahead of it with our team so they know that we're on top of it, that we're not just letting them, because it's just, there's so much misinformation, so much fear that it was very difficult to navigate through and caused a lot of stress. And the first couple of weeks with the lockdowns, our sales dropped, well over 60%. And there's genuine fear there of can we keep this thing going? Can we pay our bills? And it's very, very stressful time. So,
and the health part, now everyone knows more, but back then, the day everything shut down, we were open the next day at 11 a.m., not knowing what needed to be in place or not in place. Frank, people who are looking into going into franchising, you can always have layers, and Frank has built, that's part of why he's grown so fast and so efficiently, is he's really a people person more than a business person. And people seem to like to work for him for the most part. And so he's built a really good team of layers, and that has helped. But in the end, it all trickles up, right? Everyone knows in the end, there's someone who has to handle things. And there's a lot of times where people would say, well, Frank surely doesn't have to do that now that he has 180 employees. And it's, we were late to sign into this because he was dealing with a power outage issue where he had to drive across the state. But during COVID, he went Home Depot to Lowe's, trying to find any of the clear plexiglass that was available. It was like finding gold. And then he went and fashioned himself the plexiglass dividers for our employees that first week after COVID, because, you know, we didn't know what needed to be in place to keep them safe. And that was when he was just out there spray painting them, trying to make them look nice, putting them up and driving store to store through all 3 states, staying at hotels with all sorts of crazy rules for staying and stuff. Yeah, it was a wild time. If you owned any kind of business with customer facing, it was probably shaved 5 years off our life, maybe longer. We need less retirement money.
If you don't live as long, you don't need as much. Just saying.
Exactly.
It's true.
We don't like to talk about that though.
No, here for a good time, right? Not for a long time.
That's right.
And one of the great things that I really enjoy about franchising is that there's usually a strong community of other franchisees, you know, assuming you're in a good brand that's going well. Everybody's pretty willing to discuss things with you, contribute, and you borrow ideas from other people that, hey, is this working? Is this not working? And during those times, everything was moving so fast that we were constantly on group chats trying to figure it all out and sharing information, and that really helped us out a lot.
What if I was interested in, you know, becoming a franchise owner, whether it's Little Caesars or another brand? Like, what kind of advice would you have for them getting started?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think the big thing is, you know, I guess a couple of things is really do your homework, do your research, make sure that the system is tried and true, that you get good information. Sometimes different places will put in maybe their top stores data and feedback of how they perform, but maybe that's not necessarily the average or at other performance metrics. So just make sure you're getting the proper data, and maybe interviewing other franchisees, see what they like and don't like about the brand. Would they do it again? Those kind of questions. And then really, you know, again, then the numbers part is big. If it's making sure you have some sort of runway and you're not going to run out of money. And then make sure the people part is that you're willing to work with people. You want to work with people, train people, coach people. If it's a people intensive business, and really just understanding that piece, and that knowing that that's always going to be there, and then you're always going to have to take care of the people you work with, and that's I see a lot of people get overly stressed out with that part. So I think just knowing what you're getting into, and really doing your homework. So
especially with the numbers.
Yeah,
the numbers.
And maybe some people are coming into it with more of a passive mindset, but maybe it's really more active. Like it has to be more hands-on, at least in the beginning, maybe. Hillary, what's your advice for someone who wants to get into a franchise?
Well, first, make sure the whole family is on board, meaning your immediate family, not extended family, but because it is a whole family thing. I always refer to Frank's Pizza Shops as his pizza shops, and people will correct me and say they're yours too. I'm like, well, I work for Frank. We really try to separate them. But you probably know when you work for yourself, you end up talking about your job, I think, more than the average person, because it kind of becomes part of your identity. And so our kids have sacrificed, and we're aware of that. They've sacrificed a lot of things at the beginning, the startup stages. Frank's schedule is very fluid. I will speak to one thing for the passive investors, because we do have a partial silent investor. Frank's the majority owner, but we do have a partial silent investor, and he really doesn't do anything operationally. So that is a potential thing for people that does exist. And to give an accurate description of what Frank does day to day, physically in the store, it's bare minimum. I mean, today was a unique situation where we were late, so it kind of gave a funny anecdotal story for today. That was more my point is, in general, he is not the day-to-day person anymore. He works a lot, but he can work from anywhere. We have gone from home quite a bit for different reasons, and he's able to, as long as he has a computer and a phone, from the minute he wakes up until the stores close at midnight, he's talking to supervisors and managers about metrics and cost of goods and whatnot, but a lot of government forms, all that good stuff. But my bigger thing would be just to make sure that they are in it for those times. Because if you're thinking it's all passive, we know franchisees in all different industries, and they all have to have some active role, even if it's minimal. It doesn't mean you have to be there fixing things, but it's the best franchisees usually do have a pulse and a finger on what's happening in the stores, because that's how you keep the good people, is they feel like they're working for you, not for the corporate office. It's that family feel.
Excellent advice. I totally forgot about this. I don't even know if I've ever told you guys this, but my dad has a tragic franchise story, okay, with Fantastic Sam's. So for some reason, he thought he needed to be in the haircutting business when he had a full-time sales job selling radio in Lansing. So he decided to buy the Fantastic Sam's and immediately drove it into the ground and bled out, and just bankrupted it over a few years. And so not only did the runway not last, but he ended up taking personal money and continuing to invest more and more and more. And it was just a bad situation. So I guess in my, and I was in high school, come to think of it. So I guess in my personal family, I have some great franchisee stories. But hey, I want to end on something fun. Okay. So when you're working, Frank, going into pizza corporate, traveling around, I'm guessing that you ate a lot of pizza. I want to know, how much weight did you gain from hot and ready's back in the day? And how do you keep it off now? Your 6-pack is incredible. I mean, you guys are really good looking. If you're listening, you should, log into YouTube, check it out. But how do you keep this temptation, right, off your waistline?
Yeah, no, it's a roller coaster, right? So it's like when I first started at corporate, I actually worked in the store so much that I was just burning it off. So I could eat a cheese pizza and a salad every day, and then I lost a ton of weight. I started traveling, and then especially some of the spots in Texas with the barbecue and Franklin's barbecue and all sorts of great places that you start eating a lot, and you're flying around, you're traveling, you're not sleeping well. You put it back on, so then you kind of have to go refocus and revisit the gym and monitor the diet. It's not I think Hillary told me at one point, it's not a vacation every day if you're traveling, or every day. You can't just eat pizza all the time.
Because I see credit card charges when he's traveling immediately.
Yeah, and even now, but go down to some of the stores in Ohio. There's some good places like Raising Cane's that you can get some good chicken fingers, but yeah, no, it's just a balance, and it's tough to do, but there's a lot of ups and downs. The more I seem to work in the store, the more I can actually lose the weight.
All right, last thing. Okay, what's your favorite item on the Little Caesars menu right now for lunch? What you gonna go get?
For me, I'd go get lunch combo is probably the best deal, but then the pepperoni cheese bread is one of the most secret, not necessarily secretive, but it's incredibly good, but it's not as well known. So
all right, so for our fans, one more time, what was it called?
Pepperoni cheese bread. So it's just
okay, pepperoni cheese bread. Hillary, how about you?
I just like a traditional cheese pizza, sitting in the passenger seat of the car with a little cup of marinara that I dip each slice into. Just very simple. It never goes off the menu either.
The sauce is good at Little Caesars. I gotta
Made
give it
fresh
props.
every day.
But you're going with just the cheese. You don't like pepperoni, or?
I like it, but if I have a choice, I'll take the just cheese.
Okay.
And
There you have it. We're gonna go hot and ready large cheese, add a dipping cup, and a pepperoni cheese bread as the side. That's under $10.
Yep.
Amazing. Feed the whole family. Well, guys, thanks again for coming on the podcast. I think you have a great story from coming up playing basketball and picking apples all the way up to world domination of 1,000 Little Caesars locations. So you're on your way. Congratulations.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.